This here is my latest acquirement in automotive. 1976 El Camino Classic. It runs really good. As you can see, it doesn't smoke, but it's kind of a dog. I mean, let's face it, mid-70s Chevys, 350s weren't known for their high horsepower. And no horsepower means no excitement to drive. And I want to upgrade it, but I mean, it doesn't smoke and it runs good and it doesn't use oil, but is it still wore out? Because the reason why it's such a dog is because it's wore out. There's one way to find out. Follow along as I show you how to make a determination on whether or not this 350 is worth upgrading. First thing you do is take a look at the motor. So I'll show you what we got here. Let me get this hood open. Oh, we got chrome. We got chrome right there. This is what it is. It's looking at the numbers. This is not the original engine of this car. The original engine was a 350 2-barrel. As you can see, it's got a 350 with a 4-barrel. It's a quad jet. On that intake manifold is a 1968 or 69 350 Corvette with a 350 horsepower. It's iron, so it's been painted silver. And the reason why I know it's a 1969, besides the date, it doesn't have the fill tube in it anymore. As you can see, it doesn't have this anymore. 1969, they started using fillers in the valve covers. Excuse me. This engine is not a 69 Corvette 350 horse 350. How do I know that? Well, the casting numbers on the back and the suffix code on the front say it is a 1974 police special or police specific 350. Which I don't really know what that means. 1974, except the fact that the exhaust manifolds don't have the holes for the air pump or smog pump trees that would normally be on a 74. This one is a 69 intake, so it doesn't have an EGR valve. The valve covers are something like swap meet items that I found, and the air cleaner is just your typical part storage deal. The Quadrajet's not original to this car. That one's actually off of a 1979 454, which is probably metered a little rich for a 350. The HEI was one I had lying around. It's from a Blueprint Engines 350 that I bought several years ago and changed out. The original HEI that was in this was frozen, so it didn't want to advance. So let me get the air cleaner off so you can see it a little better. I've been driving this pretty much daily for the last couple of months. It's much more fun than driving my 4-wheel drive truck, and we haven't had any snow, so there wasn't really any point. Oops. There, you get a better look at it. I did a little bit of modification. I changed out the throttle return cable and the adjustment for the Turbo 350, so it worked better than what was on here. Being a hodgepodge of parts thrown together and thrown in this car at some point by a previous owner doesn't always mean that thing's going to run perfectly. How do I know if this engine's any good? I mean, sure, it looks cool, I guess. It looks like something we put together back when I was in high school. How do I know this engine's any good? I mean, it looks good, it runs good. I mean, it gets me down the road, but will it take any upgrades, or will it be a giant waste of time? The way to find out is to do compression and leak down tests. You ever done that? Well, if you haven't done that, I'll show you how to do it. Both of them are really easy. And the first thing you need to do is get the spark plugs out so you can do a compression test. So let's get busy. Before we take these spark plugs out, one thing you probably should do is check to see if you have any oil pressure. Now, I'm not a real fan of these gauges when it comes to the oil pressure. As you can see, the oil pressure is, there it goes. It's starting to move. Probably should open the garage door so I don't choke to death. It's a little slow to come up, and I don't know if it's the gauge or the oil pressure, but you can see it's got plenty for oil pressure. I do have a different gauge I can try out. Let's do that. Okay, we got this autometer gauge here, or auto gauge here. Let's start this thing up and see what we got. Alright. It is kind of slow to go up. Alright, idling at about 30 some odd PSI. Oh yeah, she's got plenty. Well, that's step one. Means the bearings aren't all wore out on this motor. Well, let's go on to the compression and leak down. Okay, we got two sets of tools out here. One's my Craftsman. This is a compression tester. And what it has the gauge, and then it has several different sized adapters that fit the spark plug hole that you're using, and for different vehicles and such. And all you do is screw it in, crank it over, and see what you got. So let's get started on number one here. First things first is you gotta screw this hose into the spark plug hole, which isn't always that easy because it's a longer hose and you gotta get the angle just right. All right, now you just crank it. Should only need to go over 3 or 4 times the rotation. Look at that, 150 PSI. Well, let's hope the other 7 are just like that. I gotta write it down. So I got it started off. I got 150. Of course, I accidentally wrote it on number 1 as well. So let's try to get this into number 1, and we'll keep going. When you're done, you just hit the release button. It releases the compression. Pull the hose off. Unscrew it from the cylinder. Put it in the next cylinder. Now I got it in number 8. Let's be stubborn. It's 1 and 5. What do we get? Whoa! Another 150. Oh, damn. All right. 150 on number 7. Ooh. Doing pretty good. Now if I can just get these hose in these other 2 cylinders over here, it's being stubborn as heck. Just torquing me off. There's a lot of cussing and swearing and throwing tools. I got the hose in the number 1. So. What we get? Oh, that ain't good. Let's try that. Let's give it a little bit more. Okay, there we are. All right, took a little bit, but we got it. 150. Now the object is to have them all pretty close and have none that are like less than 100. So let me try to get this in the number 5. putting on my headlamp so I can see in there. And of course I'm dropping it on the ground. Oh, Butterfingers Scott. Okay, finally got in number 5. Well, let's give it a little bit more, see what happens. Give it a couple extra more cranks. Oh, wow. Well, that's promising. So all 4 cylinders on this bank are right around 150. This one's like a couple under, like 148. But sweet. Now, there's a lot of people that are going to scream and yell that I don't have the throttle blades open. And, like, you need to have the throttle blades wide open. You can do that. If you're not feeling like you're getting the numbers you want, it's a good, I would do it. But right now, I'm not too unhappy with what the numbers I'm getting. People like screaming, you gotta do it, the numbers aren't gonna be right. Well, they've been proven wrong many, many times on many, many channels on YouTube showing that you don't have to do it. So the internet experts will be fire breathing and stuff, but let's see what we get on this one. All right, you. That starter don't sound great. Oh, look at that. That was number 4. Number 4. I don't know what it is about these other cylinders here, but they've been kind of fighting me getting in there. Oh, wait. Got that one. Oh my Lord. That was 2. Well, if number 6 and 8 aren't dead, wow, did you hear that? That's some compression there. Try to get this hose in here. All right. Cross your fingers and toes. Doesn't that starter sound funky? Oh, God. Yes. Yes. If you don't think it's got 150 PSI, just listen to this. Yeah. She's got 150 PSI. Now if I just get the hose into this last cylinder and I'll have to look at the back of my head no more. Oh, look at that first try. You see, I'm kind of getting excited here. I got 7 out of 8 with basically the exact same numbers. What we get? What we get? What we get? What we get? Oh, look at that. 150. Dang. Oof. Well, compression shows what we wanted to hear. which is great. Ooh. It's got a bit of dirt on this around the cylinder hole. This engine either has really low miles on it, or it was rebuilt, or it was extremely well maintained. Let's get out the leak down tester and the hose to do that. And now it's going to be kind of noisy because it requires the use of a compressor, so I may have to shut the volume off while doing this. So this is what we got. Alright, this is the gauges. Now I have to read the instructions again, but you really don't need a lot of air pressure for this. All you're doing is measuring the percentage it leaks down. There's always going to be a little bit of leakage, even on new engines. So we'll get started on this and see where we can get going here. Why is that all rusted? This uses a different style of hose. It looks exactly the same, and you can use this hose on these, but you have to take the Schrader valve out of it. See, this one doesn't have a Schrader valve in it. So sometimes it's easier for me to use these because it's a little more flexible and it's easier to get in the spark plug hole. Well, let's get it going here. So I got the throttle open on the carburetor. I had the PCV valve off. And I'm going to take the breather off on the other side. And why are we doing this? And then I'm going to grab my stethoscope. This is my stethoscope. It's a piece of hose. Okay, forgive me, I forgot how this works. So I had to go back and read the instructions that came with it. So once we got the hose in the cylinder, we have the gauges connected to the shop air or your air compressor, and you want to adjust. You pull this knob down. You want to adjust it so this one reads 0. So you give it a little bit of air, like that. Push the button back in, and then you connect it to the cylinder. See what you get. Oops. And this one's borderline green and yellow, 40%, which is really pretty darn good, actually, considering this is a 1974 engine. Sorry, I got my headlamp on. Now, the other thing you want to do is you want to know where the noise is coming from. Where's the air escaping? So this is where your vacuum hose stethoscope, it comes in handy. And you can stick your hand, stick it in the carburetor. It's not coming up through the carburetor. I can hear it. I can hear air coming out of the PCV valve. And you also want to do it on, let me go around the back of the camera here. You also want to do it on your dipstick tube. Right? So what I'm hearing is I'm hearing it coming out of the dipstick tube as well as out of the valve cover. So it's obviously it's getting some past the rings and some past the valve guides. At this number, that's not a big deal, really. And this engine's pretty cold. So I'm not doing this on a hot engine. So it's not a big deal. So I'm okay with that. I'm going to write that down and move on to the next one. What I may have forgotten is that you got to have your engine on top dead cylinder, top dead center, for each cylinder. So I'm just kicking and cranking the engine over until I hear it kind of whistle out of that hose that I stuck in the cylinder. You hear that? So it's pushing air. And I'll do is confirm that it's pretty close to top dead center by looking at the balancer. It is pretty close. It's reading 10 degrees before top dead center, which is fine for what we're doing. So now we reset the gauge to 0. Oh, we're going the wrong way. There we go. Reset that gauge to 0 or near 0. And then let it sit there for a moment. As you can see, this one's a little worse. It's at like 70%. No engine's going to be perfect, ever. So, let's disconnect that for a minute. There we go. Clip that shut. Oh, there we go. Oh my goodness, look at that. So that's like 35%. I'll take that. So as you can see, we got 45% on that one. So this is our score here. Compression, leak down. So we pretty much was like 148 to 152. So I just wrote 40, which is really good. But the leak down was a little bit different. I had some weird numbers that I couldn't understand because the gauge doesn't look right. But all of them are still in the moderate range, though a couple of them are in the higher moderate range, which means this engine is still pretty solid. So the engine's healthy. That's what we found out today. I mean, it's got a little more leak down than I would like, but still it's a healthy engine. It's got plenty of compression, which means the rings are still good. So what would I do to make this 350 engine less of a pooch? What would you do? Let me know. For me, the first thing I would do is get rid of these smogger heads that kill the compression on the engine and put some 64cc heads on it. Maybe some Vortec heads and a little bit of a camshaft. Now, this is a flat tappet cam engine, and putting a roller in is pretty pricey, so would I want to go that far, or would I just put a flat tappet in it and risk it? A lot of people are scared to do that. I'm not so scared about doing that now. I haven't had any failures myself. Of course, let's knock on wood somewhere. Anyway, but tell me what you would do. I mean, I think, there's no point in putting a big lumpy cam in a low compression motor because you just kill whatever cylinder pressure you have right now, which is very little. So you need a camshaft that builds cylinder pressure, and you would need you also need cylinder heads that increase compression. Both of those are necessary to get a low compression motor to actually make some power. There's some thoughts out there. I do have a set of used blueprint heads, which should wake up this engine even if I don't change the camshaft. Or I could go something else. I could go drastic and try to stroke it, turn it into a 383, which I've done before. But that's a lot more money, a lot of machining, and at that point you might as well just rebuild the whole thing. So tell me in the comments, what would you do to this? I'm kind of curious to get some ideas from other people. Thanks for watching.